Now, welcome. I'm here with my good friend David De Angelis to chat about his latest book called The Guiding Principle. I've been reading it. It's a phenomenal read. And how you doing there, David?
Yeah, hi Damien. I'm really well. Good to talk to you.
Cool. Now, I was just wondering, David, if you could actually just describe what the guiding principle is, and also the story behind how you came to realise the guiding principle.
Well, the guiding principle is actually what's happening right now. So this conversation that we're having is unfolding naturally from our own experience. And there doesn't need to be anything that actually controls that experience that we're having. That experience is delivered to us without us needing to know all of the incredible physics and mathematics or whatever language of life, the structural language of life that puts it all together. So it can be seen that our experience, our direct experience, is delivered to us by the most incredible intelligence. Now, that incredible intelligence emerges, it's an emergence from an incredible simplicity. So the guiding principle is our experience emerging from nothing into becoming everything. And our noticing of this movement of energy, this movement of intelligence, us noticing it. And when I talk about us, I mean our true identity is actually this incredible simplicity that sits behind everything, that is always present and is always there in its own radiance. And in effect, what's happening is we are noticing all of the movement that comes from us, me, you, all of the movement of experience that flows from us in its natural shape and form, the form that it wants to take, is the guiding principle. And I call it the guiding principle because it takes care of life. And it can be seen and not necessarily understood. It doesn't have to be understood. It can be known at our deepest level that life is always taken care of. And there is a momentum, a directive that life takes, a natural flow of life that we can all, in a sense, enjoy and bask in its absolute wonder. So that in essence is the guiding principle.
And in terms of your story to realising the guiding principle, it's contained within the book, and it's a compelling story. And I was just wondering if you could share a little bit more about the story.
Yeah, sure. Well, it is a long story, and quite dramatic and operatic in its expression. However, really, in very basic terms, what happened was that I hit a time in my life where I felt that life became really intolerable, and it seemed as if the whole world was kind of painted with this incredible darkness. And I found myself one day in a state of incredible despair, wandering around in the pouring rain in the woods, the heath. The woods on the heath near where I live. And I came to a point where I was really convinced that I was going to die. And I had the most tremendous pain shooting through my heart. And, I was convinced I was having a seizure or a heart attack. And it came to me that I wanted to be buried in the mud. It was pouring with rain, torrential rain. And I literally ended up on my hands and knees, scraping away, just great big clods of mud, just trying to bury myself, trying to put myself back in the earth. I mean, there was as if there was no thought behind that necessarily. It was just something that I felt just naturally I wanted to do. And it seemed that in that last moment where I thought that I was about to die, an incredible cracking sound came from the area around my chest, and then that was quickly followed by another cracking sound around my throat area. And these two incredibly loud cracking sounds seemed to have the effect of completely stopping my mind. There was no thought. It was as if my mind was shocked into silence. And in that incredible silence, I was still aware. And I became, when I say I, in effect, my attention was no longer or my sense of being was no longer captivated by all the paraphernalia of the mind, and it was just aware of its own sense of being. And when I talk about that simplicity, it was just a real sense of aliveness and being that was itself just radiant to its own nature. And it was as if I was looking out from that, and then thoughts started to happen again. The mind started to work, but what dramatically happened, in a sense, was that my reference point for my identity had shifted away from all of the sideshow and circus of the mind, and in a sense had gone back to its own original identity, which was really just this incredible radiance of being.
Wow.
And in that instance, I knew that I was effectively not, my identity was not the life that was encased in this mind.
Wow, that's
and
amazing.
that I actually was something far vaster and more miraculous than just the content of my mind. So that's how that unfolded for me. And really what the guiding principle, in essence, what the book is about, is that in that seeing, and in that very clear seeing, what very importantly happened was that completely dissolved all of the fear that had been driving my life. And that fear was that I was separate from life, separate from nature. And when that belief that I was separate from nature, separate from life, separate from God, whatever you want to call it, was no longer present, that fear that the separation was causing was no longer feeding into the mind, blocking my nature from actually shining out through into my experience. So it was seen that life without that ever-present background of fear becomes a delight, and life in and of itself becomes its own realization. And that's really what we've seen. And in essence what the book is about is how I've experimented and tried to communicate that to help other people shift the viewpoint of their identity back to this radiant sense of being, and therefore also dissolving this ever-present sense of anxiety that something's wrong with life, that life needs to be somehow changed and sorted out, that life can go wrong, and that this life needs fixing and controlling. In the absence of that belief that we are separate from everything, and the absence of the nagging fear that seems to characterize most of our life, in the absence of that, life becomes its own beautiful expression. And really that's what the book's about. It's about people recognizing who they really are, and then living from that perspective without fear, without anxiety.
Wow, phenomenal. And how can people actually get their hands on the book?
Yeah, well, that's a very simple thing. If you want to get your hands on the book and listen to lots of audios that I've got on my website, you just need to go to www.theguidingprinciple.com. So it's a very simple move, and there's lots of free material there you can listen to and enjoy. And really my only wish for the book is that it assists people to really step into the beauty and wonder of their own life, and to live joyfully without fear. So you don't need to practice anything, you don't need to give up anything. It's purely about you understanding your own identity and radiance.
Cool, wonderful. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, David, and take care.
Bless you.